Networking is essential to spice up and ace up your career. But one challenge that people find when they're trying to network is starting a conversation with a stranger, because you need to have conversations with strangers in order to network. So here are a few tips that will help you to start a conversation with a stranger, but at the same time making sure the conversation is a beneficial one. So the first thing is approaching the person confidently. Now, confidence is the key to any kind of conversation that you can think of, because if you don't approach them confidently, definitely that's not gonna impress them. And first impressions are always the best impressions. So the first thing that you need to do is, when you're approaching someone, make sure you're looking very confident, and when you're looking relaxed, approach them with a smile, because people tend to think that looking confident is looking rigid and arrogant. Now that's a totally different concept. Like, even though we tend to think that confidence looks like arrogance and a serious face, that's not it. The more relaxed and the more you smile and the more casual you look, the more confident the person looks like. The second tip is to use non-verbal cues. Now, when I say non-verbal cues, your body language is something that matters a lot when somebody looks at you. So what you can do is you can exchange a warm smile, you can exchange an eye contact, and the way they respond to your non-verbal cues is a good indication of how open they are to a conversation. So let's say, when you see someone on the streets, when you feel like this is an approachable person, if you want to start a conversation with them, look at them, share or exchange an eye contact, and then see how they respond to it. And if they look like they're willing to, have a conversation with you, then carry on and, take the first step to the conversation. The third tip is to start with a compliment or an observation. So when you're starting a conversation, you need a topic. You cannot just randomly go and expect them to start the conversation. So in order to get a topic, what you can do is you can either pick a compliment, which really makes the day of the other person, or you can just talk something about your surrounding or any observation that you made around you. So what you can do is you can go to them and you can be like, oh, you have a really nice pair of shoes. And then you can start the conversation. This is just a random compliment. I'm not asking you to make the same exact compliment, but depending on the situation and the person, you can choose to start the conversation with a compliment. Or you can make an observation, a random observation, being like, oh, the weather is pretty good today, isn't it? And then that will help you start the conversation with this person. Now, once you've started having the conversation, the next thing to do is to engage them in the conversation. So for that, to have an engaging conversation, you need to ask questions. So you can ask open-ended questions like, where are you from? What do you do? How was your day? It can be anything. So when you ask questions, make sure you show genuine interest to the responses that they give. That is the next step, because when they say something, it's not just about asking questions, it's also about listening to what they have got to say. So always be a good listener. Being a good listener is an integral part of being a good conversationalist. When they start talking about themselves, you have to share your 2 cents to the conversation. So you can be a little vulnerable. Now, being vulnerable is one thing that everybody likes, and it makes the conversation really interesting, but I do not suggest you go full on 100% vulnerability in your first conversation with a random stranger. That's not something that you should be doing, nor do I encourage doing that. But you can share a little bit from your experience when you're having the conversation. You can share what you think about the topic that you guys are talking about, and that will really enrich the whole conversation that you're having with a person. So you have to be a good listener. You have to ask the person questions and understand their perspective of things, and then you can also share your perspective of the same topic or whatever you guys are talking about. As you're having the conversation, you might realize you have a lot of common grounds. Now, when you share common interests or common experiences or so, you can then have a full-fledged conversation about that, and that will also help in strengthening the bond that you're creating with this random stranger. But while you have this conversation, while you do all of this, make sure you respect the person's boundaries. This is something that you should never forget, because when you're talking about something to someone, you might notice that they might be uncomfortable talking about certain things, or if they show hesitation to talk about certain things that you guys are conversing about, then do not try to dive deeper into that topic. You should respect that boundary, you should respect that hesitation, and then you should never dive into that particular topic. You can talk about everything else, but not that. So I have found this to be something a lot of people do, which is very irritating. Like, when you're trying to avoid something, let them avoid that. I hope these tips help you to make meaningful connections and create networks that will help you with your career and your life. If you want to know more about the courses that we provide at English House, go ahead and click on the link below.
English House. English at your fingertips.